It's finally time. In this episode of Casually Hardcore, we finally find out what's in the enigmatic envelope. We'll also be checking out a couple of other gaming treasures. Welcome to episode 11 of CHC. I know you all want to see what's in that envelope real badly, but let's look at a couple of games that are related to what's in the envelope and show why it's so special. Ask any shoot 'em up fan if they've heard of a game called Gradius, and guess what they'll say? Yeah. Konami has been rocking Gradius since 1985. Nailing down which one is the best is up for debate. But one thing is for certain, the fifth installment is definitely a little different than the rest of the series. That's most likely because Konami was hands-off with the development, handing it off to Treasure and having the music composed by Hitoshi Sakamoto. That doesn't mean that the gameplay is any worse for wear. All of the trademark weapon systems are intact and the gameplay is as tight as ever. There's definitely no mistaking that this is a Gradius game. With its super polished presentation, Gradius 5 really makes a good case for the shoot 'em up genre, and being released in 2004, it shows that the shoot 'em up is still very much alive. Of course, Treasure is known for its excellent, albeit difficult shoot 'em ups. And since Treasure is made up of former Konami employees, Gradius 5 really seems like a very good fit. Despite the change in developer, there's definitely no doubt that this is a Gradius game. The weapon building that changes the Vic Viper from a sluggish pea shooter with wings to a merciless, laser-spewing world killer is intact. The control is smooth as butter too, so if you die, it's all your fault. This time around, Gradius 5 seems to have a lot more story, featuring voiceovers and in-game cutscenes. The gameplay has also been tweaked quite a bit from its previous installments. There are less weapon systems to choose from, but the clone ships, known as options, now have new behaviors that can be activated by the R1 button. This adds a new layer of strategy to the mix. There's also the option to play with another player at the same time, which is a Gradius Core Series first. Player 2 is red, but you can't see that here because I record my footage when everyone else is asleep. But all in all, 2-player is actually very fun. Knowing how each weapon system works is crucial to your success in any level. Though they'll all allow you to lay waste to your enemies, picking the right one for your playstyle can mean the difference between destroying the core and getting the dreaded game over screen, only to have to start the whole game all over again. Speaking of destroying the core, the bosses in this game are really a piece of work. They're huge, they flood the screen with all kinds of fire, and they can just be downright nasty at times. But all in all, they are beatable with the right amount of skill and patience. It really complements the balanced gameplay that Treasure has implemented into this game. As it turns out though, this is one of the most recent shoot 'em ups that Treasure has released, and the really scary part is that it's not nearly as hard as they've been in the past. Let's rewind the clock a bit to 2003 to see just what I'm talking about. I named it number 3 in the top 10 shmups of all time back in 2007. Ikaruga is one of the most complete shmup experiences on any console, bar none. Released in 2003 as a port of the 2001 Dreamcast original, Ikaruga offers what could be described as the most intense gameplay on the GameCube. It was later released on Xbox Live Arcade, featuring online 2-player support. The main hook to Ikaruga is the color changing mechanic. You can change the color of your craft between black and white at will, and enemies will be weak to their opposite colors. In addition, you will absorb any enemy fire that's the same color that you are. This doesn't keep the game from kicking your butt though, as there are all kinds of complex fire patterns that, all told, get crazy hard to follow, especially starting at the end of Stage 3. As with most shoot 'em up style games, a high score is very important. In Ikaruga, the best way to go about getting your high score is to do color chains. 3 of the same color makes 1 chain, and any chain over 9 reads out as max chain. With careful fire, you can get a massive score by the end of the first stage. If you have a friend, Ikaruga also offers 2-player simultaneous play. It can even make things easier if one player acts as a shield and the other attacks with the enemy's weakness. Easier is a relative term though, as the difficulty is a force to be reckoned with. You have to be on your toes at all time or you're toast. Playing solo is still extremely hard to do. As you can see here, it's kinda easy to get eradicated at any time if you're not very careful. Still, with perseverance and a little luck, it is still possible to beat this game. Although I've yet to beat the Xbox Live Arcade version, I have completed the GameCube version. And seeing as I'm not the best shoot-'em-up player around, that should inspire hope to many who are frustrated with this game's difficulty. Believe it or not though, this isn't the hardest game that Treasure's ever produced. In fact, there is one more Treasure shmup that I think tops all of their previous or future efforts, both in playability and difficulty. To see what I mean, we have to go back to 1998. After all, there is a reason Ikaruga is called Project RS2. Which brings us back to this envelope. What exactly is in it? This is it. This is the crown jewel. Widely regarded as the greatest shoot-'em-up experience of all time. It's the one single shmup that's highest in demand no matter where you see it. Legendary in playability and difficulty, not to mention developer pedigree. Its only console release was in Japan for the Sega Saturn in 1998. There really isn't another game out there like Radiant Silvergun. From the get-go, you have access to all of the weapons that you'll ever need throughout the entire game. No power-ups, no mess or fuss. Just a fully loaded death machine to wipe out all of the enemies that dare stand in your way. It's possible that the success of this game hinges on the gamepad design from the Sega Saturn. With 6 easily accessible face buttons and a pair of shoulder buttons, selecting the right weapon for the right situation is just a twitch away. And this is definitely a good thing, as you'll have enemies coming at you from all sides, behind walls, and taking cover behind indestructible shields. In addition, your short-range sword attack clears certain enemy fire, which builds a gauge for a blistering melee strike. Knowing what to use and when to use it is the key to success. Radiant Silvergun also has a pretty deep story as far as shmups go, but you'll have to brush up on your Japanese to know what's going on. There's also a sweet, and hilarious, opening sequence from the excellent anime studio Gonzo, made specifically for the Saturn version. The story is continued in each level with a monologue from the captain of the Tetra, Tengai, and banter between the Silvergun pilots at the beginning and ends of the stage. And that's if you even get there, that is. This is one hard mother of a game. It's easy to see where Ikaruga gets its challenge from, and that's even without introducing colors into the mix. Again, knowing what weapons to use at the right times is key. Scoring is achieved on a couple of different levels, depending how completely you destroy a boss, how many multiples of 3 colored ships you've destroyed, which Ikaruga later adopted and tweaked, and a host of secret score points contribute to your high score. Of course, the higher the better. Speaking of bosses, there are some really creative fights and designs here. They're all pretty unique and fun to do. And of course, in typical Treasure style, there are multiple bosses in each level. The first stage, Stage 3, has a total of 5 bosses. Finally, there's the presentation as a whole. The music was composed by Hitoshi Sakamoto, as Gradius 5 was later down the line, and really stands out as one of his better soundtracks. In addition, the combination of 2D and 3D visuals with discrete scaling and smooth-moving 3D animation despite the frantic action is just fantastic. It comes off a lot like Thunder Force 5 and Gradius 4, only with much more depth and flair. There's a real reason this is regarded as the best of its class. It may have just stolen the top spot for an updated Shmup Top 10. It's pricey, but if you're a Shmup fan, it's worth every single penny. With top-notch control, excellent visuals, and a fantastic soundtrack, this is one Shmup that you will not be disappointed with.